There's Jeff.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Listen, thanks everybody for coming. I really do appreciate it. Tonight, Jeff Grove of Carolina Craftsman Kit is with us. I originally profiled Jeff in one of my articles over 2 years ago now. And I contacted him recently and asked him to do this, and he didn't hesitate. So he sent me back an email and he said something to the effect of, I don't know what to talk about. Why don't I just talk about what's happening at Carolina Craftsman? I said, I think that's fantastic. So Jeff, thank you so much for being here. We're looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Jim, for inviting me and thinking about me years ago when we started. I think I might have been one of the first couple you were doing this with, or doing the mentor program with back then. And it was, I really enjoyed it. It was fun to get together and keep pushing this stuff on a little bit. So,
well, I appreciate it. You were one of the first.
I thought one or two or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel, again, I feel honored and privileged to have been a part of that start of that thing. And again, it was very, I just enjoyed it tremendously and all. And the job you did was incredible. I just loved how you made that all work. And
thank you.
And this is nice too. I'm not a big, quite honestly, for all that I do with computers, with the CAD and everything, I'm not a computer guy. So I don't know what we're doing half the time with this stuff. So, but I'm sure glad to be here and to get to talk to all you guys. And nice to finally meet Dylan. I think I've seen him on a couple of the recent ones here, but I never really knew him. I knew of him, but again, Dylan, nice to meet you and see you and everything.
So you knew of me?
Oh yeah.
All good things, I would hope.
Well, I won't go that far. No, absolutely good things. Absolutely. So I guess maybe if nobody's got any quick questions for me, I'll start with what's going on. Busy. Can't get on to anything new right now, which is maybe that's a good thing. But I've got so many new projects laying on the desk and the workbench. I'm getting a little frustrated with the orders. So please, customers, don't take that the wrong way. But I got some new stuff I want to get to. But we've just been very, very busy. So again, and really, thank you everybody for the support of our kits and everything. Sure do appreciate it.
Jeff, I've got a question for you. It amazes me what manufacturers do. I've never tried it. When you get an idea, how do you take that idea and turn it into a kit that I will buy?
Well, I think there's a lot of things you have to really put into that, other than the fact that, I grew up with, quite honestly, with George Selliers. My dad brought me the engine house home. I was a junior in high school, and my dad brought me George Selliers' engine house home. And that kind of hooked me on Craftsman kits way back in 1968. So, over the years, I have done nothing but build Craftsman kits and probably everybody's that's out there. And Jimmy Deignan one day said, you should really do this, because I think you could, you've got a pretty good eye, and I think you could really do a nice kit. So that kind of got us started, and I think everybody's probably heard that story. But what you have to be careful of is it has to be buildable from basically all experience levels. Can a beginner build one of our Craftsman kits? We hope so, because we've tried to give you a basic kit with commercially available products in the kit that you're not having to solder, you're not having to get, go buy parts. You're welcome to do those kind of things to enhance the kit. And we can all do that with any kits that we buy, So what we try to put out there then is a kit that, kind of gives a little bit of, I don't want to say everything, but a little bit of something to everybody. Is it a starting point for a beginner, or is it a kit that experienced modeler is going to really take it on and be excited about it and enjoy building it? And also, does the beginner enjoy building it? Because if we put a kit out that the guys can't understand it or whatever, they're not coming back to buy another kit from us. So that's kind of how we get the start on it. Probably a good example right now is the boats that we're working on. Jason Jensen and I have done several projects together, and we talk about boats, and the boat manufacturers out there, their products are beautiful. But me as a modeler, and I've got a lot of experience, but when I open up that boat kit and see those 9,000 little parts and pieces to that, it's intimidating to me to know that I'm going to be wiring, riggings around, HO scale pulleys. So our design thought of our boats was to come up with a kit that was relatively simple and quick to build. But then if you are of the experience to make it better, we provide enough parts for that you can make it a very highly detailed boat. That is, in my opinion, just boats are very difficult to do the riggings and everything. So that's kind of the concept, that's kind of my thought process. I hope it works. Well, it works apparently because we're busy, but I hope it's satisfactory to the majority of the customers out there that are looking for our product and all. And again, you guys tell me if any of you have. I know Greg does a lot of our kits, and I'd love to hear what he has to say about how we've done.
Well, I don't want to step in on a meeting where you're the guest speaker. I just say I've enjoyed every kit of yours that I've built.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff, when you talk about Craftsman kits, I got to be honest with you, it scares a lot of people off. It
does. Absolutely. And we talk about that, if you go back to probably 6-7 years ago. Now we've been doing the kits for almost 7 years now, but if you go back, probably maybe to the early days of Doug Foscali doing it, before I got into this stuff, Doug, we would say the same thing when we're sitting around talking everything. We intimidate, we intimidate the modeler sometimes with the fact that it says Craftsman kits. And I think that we as the manufacturers and the show people and these kind of things have brought them into a realm of they're not as difficult as you think they are. They're not a box of sticks like, quite honestly, 20 years ago, that's what a lot of them were. But today with the laser cutters becoming as available and as affordable, I think we're finding we're doing an awful lot of things to make it almost like a place and press or whatever you want to say with that to simplify them a little bit.
Question, sir.
Yes.
Are you going to convert your products to O gauge someday?
Well, we do a lot of O gauge. We probably offer. Actually, I just ran a list the other day for a customer, and we offer over 100 O scale kits. Am I breaking you up there with something, Jim, or is that something?
Dylan, I don't know what's the problem.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I'm hearing it on my end too.
Yeah. So
I think somebody's mic is picking up their computer. That's my best guess.
well, I have my other computer here, so let me get it out of the way. Maybe that could be it.
Is there a problem?
So is that better? Maybe that's better now. Better? Yeah.
Problem
Better
is,
from this
I'm
end.
picking up so much sound from different microphones, like just little things somebody's picking up in the background. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. See, but if I can, I'll answer Tim there a little better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tim, yes, we offer lots of O-scale kits. They're certainly not as popular as the HO, of course. We all know how that is, but yes, we do an awful lot of O-scale kits, and they're all, you can see them all on the website.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Absolutely.
So what are your plans for the future for your kit model craftsmanship?
Well, like I said, we've got several new projects in the works. We're trying to finish up our Eagle Landing, which is an HO scale kit that we're doing with Jason Jensen and I have developed. And that's probably about 2 or 3 weeks away from being done. But Jason and I both just have little things in life that keep getting in the way a little bit. So we're hoping to still be on track for June 30th offering, shipping that one and everything. So that's that. Nothing in O scale right now. That's kind of trying to get caught up on the HO things right now. And of course, the HO boats have been very popular. We're still staying on those right now. We've got 2 of those that will be coming out. 2 new ones of those will be coming out.
If it's okay, I can give you some ideas someday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Probably at train shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully we soon see train shows back. I hear they're doing the show in North Carolina next weekend.
I just saw that.
Yeah, so
I'll tell you what, good on them for at least trying.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just, when you think about that, I wonder how it's going to go. They say there's 320 tables at it, so I sure hope that it gets attended well and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was surprised when they canceled the Narrow Gauge convention. That one really shocked me. So.
Well, it was a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because you figure by September, you figure you're in a safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The safety zone.
Well, you figure the virus is going to have died off by then, at least for the most part.
I'm hoping the virus will end by either August or September, so we can go to the York Train Show in hopefully in October. Do you think it's possible?
I've heard rumors that they're talking. They're not sure what's going to happen with the Timonium October show still. So apparently the fairgrounds isn't being, real responsive with what their thoughts are. So
I heard that too.
yeah, yep. That I've heard, and again, it's rumors and everything, but I've heard that the fairgrounds isn't even considering any kind of shows until 2021 now. So that's just amazing to me that, whatever. But I guess diligent is what we have to be, so.
Okay. Well,
Well,
if they cancel it, then I'll go to the one in April and October next year in 2021.
Yep.
I'm not going to be pessimistic about this year.
No, absolutely. Got to keep our hopes up that we'll get to go to one of them. Yes, absolutely.
Can I say something on that?
Sure.
please.
With all of this demonstrations and rioting and all this other stuff in major towns, if the virus was going to die away, it may be making a rebound here.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping not.
You bring up a point. I mean, you would hope it doesn't, but it's one of those things we're not going to be able to control.
Mhm.
Because the problem is you can't control people. I know that firsthand. Really, ask me how
That's
I
right.
know.
Mhm. Well,
But it,
and actually, my wife is pretty adamant that you know, normally she supports everything that I do with all this, but she's not happy about going to shows at this point. So she may not be happy about going to show in October still. So
Jeff, that's the reason that I first started these, because, I don't know how old everybody is on this thing. I'm 80 years old. So the thought of me getting out right now and trying to go to a show is just out of the question. I'm just not
Right.
going to gamble, just to go to a show. So I thought, well, the alternative seems to be some technology like this, and at least we can get together and talk to each other, even though maybe there's not a show. And Jeff, that's why I'm so happy that people like you want to come, because we can find out about your products and about what's in your mind and what your plans are and so forth, where if we used to find that out at the shows.
right. Yep.
I have a question for Jeff, if you don't mind.
Please.
When you're developing a new kit, where do you get the idea from inspiration to the planning where you have to cut it as a model? Do you draw on construction backgrounds and stuff? Or how do you know that everything's going to work when you're actually drawing out the design?
Well, in today's world, there's computer programs that will tell you whether it will or won't work. I think SolidWorks, and I can't tell you the names of them, but I think AutoCAD has a process of that. But what happens when you draw, if you again, it's CAD drawing, so you have to draw it up as a system. And you basically have to draw every individual wall and components to it. And of course, you need to run your dimensioning to make sure that they match up with what you're doing with, again, the sizes, that one wall matches the other wall and things like that and everything. But again, you draw it up, and for most, I will end up drawing a test or cutting a test kit then after I've got it drawn up. And I'll normally do that out of cardboard or illustration board or something laying around to make sure, because not wasting material then. And if it all fits and you like the window layouts, you can move forward to the next process of that. And again, what you get when you do that is, again, you'll be able to see how the windows, if you're not working off of a prototype where you're trying to match up. Greg, you've done several of my kits, I know, that we've tried to use as a prototype from the existing buildings. Some of the Western Maryland stuff we've done, and of course the amount of stuff we did for Jim. Jim was a stickler for me with making sure the windows were right and the sizes were right and locations were correct and everything. And that drawing up or cutting a sample that we could build always made that work and everything. So, and let me interject real quick here too. I know you guys, we all know Jim Koshin, who has passed away on us. I miss him every day. He was quite a man, quite a friend to us in the hobby. So he's much missed.
I got a question. It's Peter Bergs here in Canada. I was just wondering, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I was wondering, what is your typical breakdown for the most expensive things in a kit and, the hardest things to make for a kit? And, is it the labor of the packaging, or is it the castings? Is it the windows? Is it the walls, the laser cutting, that sort of stuff?
The toughest part of the costing today right now is shipping. We have to, for most kits, I'm buying products from 3, 4, 5, 6 different suppliers. And good heavens, everything you buy today, your shipping costs are phenomenal. If I go through, when we do our records and everything, our shipping costs basically double every year. And they are already showing the same characteristics of that this year. We just ran the numbers through the first quarter finalized, and our shipping costs are more than double. And now there's a bit of that is busier, so we're buying more, but as a percentage of the cost of the kits, shipping is just killing us. So that's probably the biggest thing, per an individual kit. And then you get into your sidings, the Northeastern materials. They are your next most expensive portion of the kit that we find. The laser cutting, of course, is probably the third portion of the costing, just because of the time on the laser. And laser repairs are not cheap. Anytime you got to do something to a laser, it's normally a pretty expensive layout just to get parts and everything.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much for the information.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's not normal that we hear that kind of information.
Well, it's not rocket science, it's it's just developing everything together. And kind of to go back on your question there, you said about castings. What's everybody's feelings on detail castings? In our kits, we don't put a lot of castings in because we're buying them from other manufacturers and everything, and they start adding up quickly to the cost of the kits. What's anybody got any thoughts on? Okay, do you add $50 to a kit for 40 castings, or do you let you keep the cost of your kit down and let the modeler do a lot of that on his own? Thoughts on that, guys?
I think it might depend on what you're adding to the kit. That's just my gut. I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm a structure guy. I'm a locomotive guy. So, for instance, like when I look at like the junkyard dog I'm working on right now that I picked up from Tom York. When I look at that, okay, what do you figure there's 51 parts in the kit. When you figure everything in between the strip wood I'm going to need for the running boards, all the castings, all, the molds, because the molds do cost money. Now, I'm not the one doing the casting. Lucky for me, I have a guy for that. But it still costs money. And it's a question of what's a fair price on those parts. So if you look at the part and it's not square or it likes to warp, you can't really charge a huge markup on that because somebody's got to try and tweak it to make it work. Where if it's something that looks spot on to a prototype, like if I was to make a perfect scale model of my window, that's right over there that you guys can't see, go figure. If I was to make a perfect scale model that it captures all the detail and everything, that'd be one thing. But it's also O scale. Some of the details are very easy to catch, but even in O scale, there's some small stuff that's hard to do. I mean, you probably know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
Probably more so because you've been doing it longer than me. It's also a matter of what's your master. If your master is perfect or as close to perfect as you can get it, the final part's going to be great, regardless of what you do, because you're basically just duplicating that part. It also comes down to the medium that you're duplicating it with. Like if you were to make a rubber mold for something, that's going to capture a lot of detail. There's still going to be a little bit like you're missing. Like if you have a little scratch, it'll show up. But if you're missing for instance, if a dimple for drilling out a hand iron or a grab iron is not deep enough, it might not, the rubber mold might not show up. It might not show up well in the second casting, like in the duplicate.
Jeff, my thoughts on castings, if you're making your own castings and you're making a lot of them, then you might go ahead and include some in a kit. But in most cases, I think most of the time you're going to be including a casting only if it's something specific and really works with your kit. I believe one of your dockside kits had a crane casting in it that was perfect for it. But I wouldn't see why you would want to include trash cans or other things like that we can get from any supplier. I sometimes see casting boxes for some of the old fine scale miniature kits that Jimmy Deignan is selling. You can pay 40, 50, 60 bucks for a box of castings, and everything in there is worth it, but everything in there isn't necessarily applicable to any model. So as far as the general craftsman constructor offering a lot of castings, I think it would be only if it's something that is really specific to that particular model.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if the casting is integral with the theme of the kit, it should be included. If you do a machine shop, you should probably try to include castings of a lathe and a milling machine. But generic barrels and generic shelves full of junk, not always required, and I would much prefer to pay less for a kit than to have a whole bunch of barrel castings.
Yeah, and that's kind of my, that's, as not a manufacturer, if I'm buying kits, I agree with that. I like the fact that there's a specific item to that kit. I like the fact that a manufacturer would do something that makes that kit a little special. But then, yeah, I can go to shows, or you can go on, actually, quite honestly, you can get on eBay a lot of times and pick up some castings for some really good price values and everything. So that's kind of where I've got it. And now what we've done in the last two kits is we've done, Jimmy Deignan has made me separate little packages of detail castings that, okay, they're not included in the kit, but if you want them, we will sell those at basically a cost that that has some generic items in it that if some of the newcomers in particular don't have a lot of the boxes of castings laying around, they can get that started with those. So, and I found I've gotten a lot of good feedback from that instead of having $35 added to the kit cost, you can buy that separate or not buy it at all. So that's proven to be pretty good so far. So yeah.
The balsa airplane people have been doing that. They've gone to short and long kits that you can just buy the laser cuts of the airplane ribs and not get any strip wood with it because they can cut their own, and it really reduces the cost.
Okay. Yeah. And again, I get a lot, and the cost is it's pretty, you got to try to fill everybody's needs here, because I have gotten a lot of requests for, what about just the walls? And, I've got strip wood laying around, so don't include strip wood. So we've actually been giving that some thought too, because, disposable income is different everywhere. And, if you want to buy a kit with the walls, why not make that available? So we're giving that some thought now too, to see if that, is.
But then your storage and SKU management becomes a hassle for you, which drives up the price as well.
Well, it adds a second, pick list, a second storage, all kinds of things, so yes, there's a lot of things that we need to consider, whether we would or wouldn't do that. Yes.
Nice thing would be if you could just, here's a pack of strip wood that works for 90% of our kits. And then you don't have that issue. You can just, here's the walls, here's the strip wood, here's the windows, and here's the details. Mix and match whatever you want.
Well, I think that Sierra West, I think they have like if you buy one of their kits where they do the non-strip wood, I think they have an agreement with, it might be Northeastern, where you can call Northeastern and say, I need kit D from Sierra West, and they send you. They have that all counted out. That they have that all ready to go, and they'll send it out to you, and it's what you need for kit D. So and again, the wood people and all, they're pretty accommodating with things like that today. So that could be a good thought to try to maybe carry that on a little bit.
The downside is when I buy a kit, I expect it to be a kit. I want to be able to put it together. I don't want to have to then go off and find several other things that's going to delay me from building my kit. So I like instant gratification.
Well, and that's
You sound like a
I'm not
lot of people I went to school with. We like instant gratification.
And
Instant
trust me,
gratification is
I
good.
went to school before you did.
Oh, I know you did, but believe me, I still have people that I know that I went to school with that are all about that instant gratification, and I just look at them and I'm like, it's called be patient.
Patience is
Yeah,
putting
that
together
gets
the
into
damn
the
kit.
argument about long and short kits. So
yeah.
I'm on the fence either way, but I would really like to see some out of print limited edition kits come out as just short kits of something. If somebody would sell me the plans for sheepscot kits, I would love that.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. There's a lot of that out there. Sheepscot, fine scale miniatures, even the South Rivers and all, those were, again, such unique kits and everything. But yeah, you're right.
Well,
I'm also one that
You mean something like this?
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's an old Sheepscot kit that I've been working on. It was,
How long did
I think it was bought eventually by Bollinger.
Jack's got his helper with him too.
Oh yeah, Maya's here.
Dog's a little out of scale.
But
Well, I've seen Casey Workshop is offering a couple of the old fine scale miniatures where he just sells the walls, other pieces, and there's no instructions. You provide, you provide your own strip wood and roofing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Sierra West is doing that too.
Yeah.
I always consider when I'm buying a Craftsman kit, I'm buying a piece of the manufacturer's imagination, because that's where the value is the design of the structure, and the pieces are just there to build whatever he was imagining, because they can imagine and design this stuff way better than I can, and that's what I'm paying for, is the idea of building.
I'm sorry. Somebody mentioned Sheepscot a moment ago. On my to-do pile, which we all have, I've got the Northampton Station by Sheepscot. So if somebody wants the instructions,
we all need to call Jimmy Dignan. Jimmy has bought all the Sheepscot stuff except for the vehicles.
Really?
And he still hasn't put that out. He's probably owned that for 10 years.
Oh,
And he said it's a storage building full of parts and pieces, and he says he just can't handle it and everything. But he just, it breaks his heart, he says, to not be able to get out there to get that done. So we need to keep pushing him to get them back, because they're just beautiful kits that he put out.
Yeah, I love the design of those kits, but they are the classic box of strip wood.
Yeah, they're not always a fun kit to build, in my opinion. I've built several, but they can they're like me putting pulleys on a boat, So
Yeah, but they're very, very realistic, or they're very scaled up to being realistic. There's not a lot of what do they call that? Reduction in them.
selective compression.
Yeah, that's the word.
Mhm.
You got it. Selective compression. There's not a lot in those structures, which I
Mhm.
appreciate.
Mhm.
Jeff, one other thing that might I'd be interested in. A couple of years ago, I think maybe Jimmy did the kit. It was a little station kit, and you could buy that. And then he did a deal with Bill Sartori up at
Mhm.
Microlumina, and had a kit put together for the interior lighting
Mhm.
specifically for that kit.
Yes.
And you're not going to get it in the boats, but some of your other structures, I'm not saying just with Bill, but look at some of the other vendors to maybe put together the interior lighting kits or the interior detail kits.
We did a few of that with Bill. We did that with the Monitor Barn. We did that with the Frog Pond store. We tried to do it with Shoyers, but then he got some things that got in his way that he couldn't get them done and everything. But yes, that's something that I would like to do just the same way with the detail parts
Yeah.
casting set. You know,
Yeah.
okay, here's $150 kit. But then you can go get the lighting kit. You can get and you can turn it into. And again, the standard we all go to is what is a complete kit. We still look at Celios and Fine Scale Miniatures and Bob Van Gelders. You know, those were the complete kits basically. And you know, to buy that kit with the 75, 100 detail castings, you know, you were always in the 325 to, you know, quite honestly, $400 price range. So,
Yeah.
so yes, I'll go back to saying that I like the thought of getting a lighting kit, a street scene kit, you know, something like that with every kit and everything. I don't know if I just put a kit together called Main Street 1952, which is nothing more than 3 of probably some of my most popular street scene buildings. It's 3 different buildings in there. But what we did with the complete kit is we now offer a sidewalk, you know, more of a complete block area with we did add details, some lighting, light posts and things like that with it to make it a more complete kit. And that's been very popular. So we are looking at doing more of that with our popular single kits and doing it that way. That's proven to be very well. So, but Greg, I didn't answer one question for you, Greg, about some of the experience on getting the kits architecturally correct. My background was a draftsman drawing houses and commercial projects and everything. So again, I try to make them that that they are prototypically correct in construction. Prime example that goes back to some of the stations. Again, Elkins for one, you'll know exactly how that was, because that one had proper headers and sills and all the block type headers that you would put in a brick construction. We either cut them in or gave you the extra components. We did all the same thing for the way the foundation worked. It adds to the kit itself in both materials and time, but I think it really makes the kit stand out from some of the other kits that aren't maybe architecturally correct. And we've done that with most. When we do a historical building, we've tried to really keep it as correct as we can. To do that. The Latimer House we did, Cooper House, some of those bigger historical buildings is the way we did that, and trying to keep them very correct with headers and window treatments and things like that.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that your background in drafting for house construction and stuff is going to help when you're doing any type of free scale house where you're not basing it on a prototype and you're just working out of your imagination and coming up with something that you like the look of, but drawing on that background, you can make sure it's something that could exist in the real world.
Yes, yes. And you'll hear a lot of comments where they'll say, well, that was never done in the real world. Well, be careful, because I've seen things that you would never think would happen, and you find a picture of it. All you gotta do is travel through Vermont one day. If you've never been in Vermont, make a trip up there, and you'll see those windows that they hang on the side that match that are angled the same way as the gables are. That's what they do.
Actually called the Vermont window.
Yep. That's and they're all over the place up there. So don't ever say that would never happen. Chris is working. You're supposed to be listening, Chris.
I am listening.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just moved to Vermont, so I haven't seen those yet.
Well, I got a cousin that lives in Waterbury Station, and they are everywhere up through his area.
They're originally used to so basically when it snowed out, people could open their windows and climb out and shovel off the roof.
That's exactly right. That's what they were for. Yep.
What are you working on, Chris?
Let's see. Actually, I've been working on one of Jeff's kits. This is one called Darby's Mill. I don't
Wow.
know how well you can see it, but
I can see it good.
and then I've got some other kits that I'm working on for my company. I don't want to steal any of Jeff's thunder, so we'll save those for another time. But
Okay.
I got some nice little cars and stuff I'm working on. So
Okay. I'll be surprised when I see them.
there you go.
My thought on details is, I model an HO, and the way when I first really got really into super detailing and all that, I was modeling the Delaware Hudson during the transition era, and I actually turned around. I did this RS3. I found every little detail I could add to it and all that. And the thing is that with D&H engines, when they were first getting them, they were painted black with yellow stripes on the end. It hid all the detail. So, so it's like, all this work and it just gets hidden because it's all too dark.
Mm-hmm.
This is just my opinion, is because of that experience, is that I try to go with details that are obvious from maybe 5 feet away or something like that. There's like the on the RS3, a lot of times you see the little things for the lift rings, to lift out the engines. Well, those are so small that they usually get hidden unless you have a light colored paint scheme. But a lot of things that I haven't bought one in years, but because I had the model die casting, the Store Hobbies ones, the Atlas ones. The thing is that they didn't. What they didn't have, or surprised me, is the massive, large. I think it had to do with the brake. If I remember correctly, it was like a brake chain that goes around. It's a big, huge, large casting that goes on the side of the rear truck. But none of the kit, that was always, you always had to buy that as a super detailed part. None of the manufacturers had that on the locomotive, which to me is blatantly obvious that if you have that missing, it's going to be a model.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, that kind of goes back to you're right. Some days I miss the fact that you can buy a $20 Athearn engine and then spend $50 on super detailing it if you really wanted to. But that's gone today. Our engines, whatever we do with an engine, it's going to cost us, quite a bit of money today. Now they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but they're not a model that you're going to work on in a lot of cases. It's pretty much ready to go, but it's costing you $150 to $500 anymore, in HO. So,
yeah.
It's not worth it in N scale. You can do the 3 foot rule.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And not only that, if you happen to have your own railroad, or they don't actually make the prototype you're looking for, then what do? Yeah, it's like then there's that part where you can't really. From what I see, there was a time where you can buy like a model die casting kit, and then you're using just the chassis part of it and redesigning stuff and all that. Which now, with the kits they have now, it's like you barely want to touch it because it looks so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the beauty of what they've done. They're absolutely gorgeous, but I still have my private road that my mine and timber is on my layout is still a private road that you kind of hate to buy a $300 Norfolk and Western engine or something and then start repainting it, but that's what we have to do for the most part.
Yeah, try finding something undecorated.
Yeah.
We're so far
Maybe
ahead now.
you should buy an older HO train and then redecorate it.
Well, the problem with that is now there's not a whole lot of train shows to go find those things. We got a lot of things that interfere with our normal life with this hobby sometimes. So especially right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember all the articles about slicing and dicing locomotive shells to get the louvers in the right spot, and using like 4 shells to get an SD15 AC or something out at the end. Those were projects. Adding detail is easy, but slicing up a shell into like 6 different pieces is quite a job, and getting it all to look good at the end.
Absolutely.
I think that's one. I mean, that's my opinion with the narrow gauge stuff, is because that's still sort of a niche enough market where it's like, okay, you're trying to, I guess, build something that's generic enough that you sort of kind of fit anywhere. But if you want to actually have the particular locomotive you have or want, you can still chop them up a little bit, or in case of Dylan, 3D print them and then go that.
Unless you do RGS or Denver and Rio Grande, and if you do RGS or Denver and Rio Grande, you're right down to engine number details.
Yes.
And people are very serious about it too.
You're telling me. I've had some interesting conversations with people about green on Denver and Rio Grande engines. And
you survived.
One of my buddies pointed out to me, he's like, hey, there were some that literally developed into fistfights. And I'm like, okay, that's a little bit up there over a paint job.
Jeff, going back to the kit business, in a HO run like some of your background kits, how many of them do you have to sell to hit a break even?
Well,
I mean, I'm not trying to ask for industry secrets, but
again, I don't know. Some of the guys, may say, Jeff, don't talk, but that's whatever. That doesn't bother me. I find if I don't sell 12 of a kit, it's not worth my effort.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is that everything I put out, for the most part, is developed and done for me before I care about trying to even sell it, because of what I'm doing on my layout. I've got we downsized recently, so I've got a very small space for my layout, but I want it to be nothing but Carolina Craftsman Kits product throughout the entire layout. So everything that I design for one thing to the other is all developed as a kit. And if I decide I want to put it out, then we put it out. And I hope to sell 12. And, some I sell 3, some I don't sell any. And some I can't keep up with. So, again, and I'd like to know, I know a lot of guys and they're good friends, but nobody will tell you how many kits they sell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish I knew someday what, how many kits some of these guys sell, and then I could say, well, am I in the league or am I just just throwing foul balls and everything? So, but
if you've got a niche, keep it, please.
yeah, well, I enjoy what I'm doing. It's still a hobby. I'm not trying to make a living at it. I'm trying to put a product out there that everybody likes and wants to use on their layout or we talk about the hobby and everything. I'm finding that my kits, I'm selling a lot of kits to guys that aren't model railroaders. They're model builders, they're diorama builders, but if there's a train there, it's not so much the intent to have a train on with these kits sometimes. I've got a guy out of Ohio that buys, he'll buy 2 or 3 of everything that we do, only because he wants to do one for a diorama, one for possibly a layout later that he's like the rest of us, he'll never get there. And then he's got one he wants to just hang on to. But his love is doing the modules, and he could care less if there's a train track in it. So I think that's a different part of the hobby that has really evolved over the last 4, 5, 6 years or something. I think I find a lot more of that than I ever had, with guys just wanting to buy kits to build them as a kit, as a small diorama, big diorama.
I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think Kevin, when he was here last time, talked about maybe the enterprise railroads are, not what people are thinking about. I hear more and more people talking about dioramas, and that's where their real interest is. And if they can get a kit like you produce and make it a central part of a reasonably small diorama, that's what their plan is for this year. It might take them a year to finish their diorama, and they may have a boat in it, they may have no telling what, but that small diorama is basically that's their modeling effort for the year.
That's where I'm at. I'm more of a railroad modeler than a model railroader.
Yep. Well, and I love the again, with downsizing, all of a sudden you don't have a huge basement. I had my layout that I tore down several years ago was about 3,000 square feet. So it was incredible size, but it was an awful lot of work. Now I'm working in a layout. It's a double layer, double decker that's probably about 18 by 24. But the problem with it is the DCC is always something giving me a fit with that. We're not done yet, of course, but still it's just giving me a fit. So I almost will a lot of times just say, well, I'm done messing with this. I'm going to go work on a kit or a diorama. And that's what I'm finding my love of the hobby is, as much as a train layout anymore. Plus track work. Let's talk about track work, how finicky you have to be with that. And and just like Dylan, just like we were saying earlier, instant gratification. Well, that's not building a layout anymore, and that's not building a diorama either. But you are seeing a diorama develop quicker than you will a layout for the most part.
You can get a sense of accomplishment. If you've got a 3,000 square foot layout, you're not going to get nearly as much accomplishment feeling for at least 20 or 30 years.
Right. You say you're going to detail a certain area. Well, a 3,000 square foot layout, that's only one of 200 areas probably that you want to get that level of detail to. And what I find with the Craftsman Kit guys is they enjoy doing the detail castings and those parts and pieces to finish it up for a scene as much as they do building the original model, original structure.
I think there's also.
I think that's the market. I think that's where a lot of the market is headed. The other part of the market is people are in apartments, particularly the younger people coming on. They don't have basements and attics. And
I may not have a basement, and I may not have a separate room for a train layout, but someday I might have a 75,000 square feet layout.
Mhm.
Build this empire.
Yeah, the individual building of the dioramas and all that sort of stuff is really, really gratifying. And then for the train operations, it's good to just join a club
Mhm.
and build some stuff for the club and run the trains there and have big layout there.
I think I might join the Train Masters of Babylon someday, but it might take a while.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is there's people who just don't like to build bench work, don't like
Mhm.
wiring, don't like laying track. Diorama avoids all those icky things.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely.
I might learn these things, but I might like them too.
Mhm.
But
And
I have to wear gloves to prevent electric wiring. Is that true?
No, not with our stuff generally, no.
But Josh Ruppin told me to wear gloves in case I get electric shock when it comes to wiring.
Well,
He's
I would
from,
say that's probably
Most of it you really
easy.
don't have to worry about.
oh, that's a relief. But just in case.
No, if you're dealing with 110 volts or higher, you should wear some sort of protection or make sure your power is off. But the 12 volt and 28, 24 volt stuff with model railroads are not serious.
Okay. Well, do you guys have any tips on what kind of friends I should get to help me start a club after I join the Train Masters of Babylon?
I'm not familiar with the Train Masters of Babylon, but there should be a local club that you can join, and you just need to find them at a local hobby show.
Sure thing.
Yeah, that's the best way. That's how I know what clubs are in my area. Some of them are open and some of them are closed. As a beginner or somebody new, it's much easier to get accepted by an open club than to try to get into a closed club.
You know what? I met a guy who is a Thomas the Tank Engine fan, and he's very interested in what I'm interested in too. So I might ask him for help someday.
Good idea.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Check with the hobby shop that's around too, because they normally have a guy or two that would know who to get up with and all.
How about TM Books and Videos? They might help me with the bench work to build this 75,000 square feet O gauge layout. It's very big enough.
You're gonna need to find an old Walmart, Tim, to put that in.
or an 11,000 square feet building.
Yeah, it's a big building.
Toys R Us. Get an old Toys R Us building.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one down the street.
Some of the clubs are having right now is they can't get together and meet in person
Yes.
because of the virus.
Mhm.
Our club, we've had to go to Zoom meetings in place of our weekly get-together meetings just because we can't all get together anymore. And
Yeah.
Once the virus has subsided, if they have a vaccine out, then we'll be able to get together again. But right now, we can only get together on Zoom, and it cuts down on a lot of production.
Mhm.
Hey,
Yeah.
that would not be a bad idea. I might get together on the Tank Engine model railroading group.
That's what,
Now, have you joined the local NMRA group?
MRA group.
The NMRA group. The National Model Railroad
Model
Association.
Railroad Association,
Oh, right.
NMRA.
Yes. I'd rather join the TCA group if it's okay with you guys. But thank you.
Yeah. Is there a local TCA group with you?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with TCA.
It
Train
stands for
collectors.
Collectors Association.
What was that?
Train
Collectors.
Collectors Association.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I learned something today.
Their headquarters is located in Strasburg, Pennsylvania.
Cool.
You might like it there. They have a small HO layout along with 4 more layouts, all in different scale.
I have no problem with collecting. I do too much of it.
We all
Something
do. I
you do
think.
have a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
welcome to the club.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I need a model builders association.
I think
Uh,
I have to leave for now. Thanks for letting me join.
absolutely,
Yes,
Tim.
nice to meet
Welcome,
you.
Jim.
Nice to talk with you.
I'll see you later.
Yeah, good luck,
Okay,
buddy.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Jeff, you answered one of my questions. I've been wondering why you started producing boats.
I don't know, Jim.
Well, I know it had to be for your own layout.
It was for my own layout, and again, you guys probably know the name Jason Jensen. Jason really pushes me on stuff because he just never stops. You know, he just goes on and on and on. And he was talking about some boats a couple of weeks ago. Well, it's probably a couple of months ago now, and he was saying the same thing I said. You know, they can be pretty difficult to work on, and you know, do they have to be prototypical? So I said, well, you know, I got some ideas on some boats that you get a wood hull. You know, you're not doing a resin hull, so it's not. I think wood's a lot easier to paint than resin is to get the finished look out of and everything, to get the look that I want. Again, Greg has seen my layout, and he knows that, you know, nothing on my layout looks new. Everything has to be weathered. And these boats, and I've had a hard time getting the right finish that I like on some of the boats. And yeah, I've tried them all. And I really like the way, when I sent Jason the wood ones that I had, he came back and said, I love how they finished. And then I did a couple more of them, and the more I did, the more I enjoyed them too. So I'm up to about, I think probably about 9 boats that we're, you know, going to have in production pretty soon. And they're all smaller type boats, 24, 34 foot boats. It's just, for some reason, I'm enjoying the boats right now. And I've never been a modeler person of any sort, but I'm really liking the way these go together. And I'm enjoying, part of what I really enjoy about the hobby is the development of the kits, drawing them on the computer and all that stuff. I've really enjoyed that part of it. So watch for more boats, Jim.
I'll start worrying when you start producing model airplanes.
Well, I actually had a guy ask about doing what the boat planes or whatever they are, you know, the floating planes.
Float planes?
Yeah, there you go. He said, you should try that. And I said, don't get me started.
Now, can I talk you into doing any of these boats in N scale? I could use a few.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of news here then that's not for publication, so you didn't hear this from me. You guys might know Steve Milley with Rail Scale Models. I know Jim does, and Chris and everything. He's a good friend of mine. He helps me with a lot of my cutting to stay caught up. If it wasn't for him, I would be so far behind right now. Nobody would buy a kit from us. But again, Steve Milley at Rail Scale Models, I've given him the rights to anything that we do in HO scale or O scale to do in N scale.
Mm-hmm.
So any of you guys looking for N scale stuff, get up with Steve at Rail Scale and say, hey, and he's doing very well with it right now. He's got several guys that are using his kits, and he's got several in stock that he's already done. So check him out. He's got some good product.
I'm on there now. Thank you.
Yep. And like I said, if you contact him, if you see one of our kits that you like, contact him and say, hey, put this one on your list, because as he gets those inquiries, or I send him the inquiries, he's pretty responsive to it. And I quite honestly, probably in the last week, there has probably been 6 requests for N-scale boats. So that might come sooner than later.
Nice, thank you.
And we've got him signed up. He's going to be one of our featured modelers shortly. So he'll be here.
Thank you.
I will say this about Steve, and having worked with him on locomotive cabs, he's good. He's very good. He's very busy because everyone and their mother has realized, oh, hey, Stephen Millie, let's call this guy.
Yeah, he's an engineer.
He's good. He is really good at what he does.
Yeah, he's an engineer by education, and he's a meticulous engineer. And you're right, Dylan. He is incredible. I'm sorry he's gotten so busy, because he's messed up my new projects by being so busy.
Greg, I saw you put up Shorty's box.
Yeah.
This is my rendition of Shorty's.
Nice.
That's one of Steve's kits.
Mm-hmm.
That looks really, really good.
And he actually just recently bought Railway Design Associates. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with them, but that was Rod Guthrie from back in the 60s. He was one of the innovators of injection molding kits and everything. And if you you do a lookup of Railway Design Associates, very popular kit, stone, brick, resin. And Steve has just recently bought that company.
Like
and
this one.
Yeah, there you go. He'll do fantastic with that line because of what he will do to add to it. And that line got kind of tired because Rod passed away probably 15, 20 years ago, and his wife and the kids were still working on it and everything, but they weren't interested in the model railroading business to speak of. But they had too many people asking for Rod's product, so they kept at it for several years. And then Steve has already, just like what Greg just showed you there, he has already repackaged and done a lot of neat things to what he's gotten out already with them. So.
The stone
I just
roundhouse
realized
is
I was
beautiful.
muted when you were showing your kit. I hope I can come up with something that looks that good. You did a great job on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, see, Jack's been busy with the stuff too, haven't you, Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve cuts mine as well. And unfortunately, Jeff keeps him so busy, mine get pushed to the back of the pile. I need to call you about that.
Perfect example of being pushed back to the pile. I went to him like 3 months before we started it and mentioned, hey, I need another cab kit. He's like, okay. Then 3 months later, he's like, I'm finally getting to it. I'm like, okay, I can live with that. And he did the cab. He did such a good job with the cab for my little vest pocket consolidation. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to keep that cab kit laser cut. It goes, it's beautiful. It really is. The roof panel's a little bit annoying, but roof panels on any curve is a bit annoying. That is what it is. He just did such a good job with it. I'm like, yeah, no, this is staying laser cut. I know it's a mixed media kit, but dude, no, I'm not throwing away that good work. It really is good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, I'll let him tell you the story about how he got into the business, and he'll blame me, but that's a good thing. And I told him that with what he's doing with this cutting, he's got to give me priority. So I don't know that he does, but
Well, what I find kind of ironic is even when they're at their busiest and they're months behind and the orders are piling up, I have never seen a constructor take on any additional people. I don't think there's enough overhead in the industry that they can afford to, but probably the only company that I've seen that actually employed people was back in the 90s, Laser Art. They were actually kind of a big company when they were first doing it.
Well, I think Art up at Bar Mills, I think he's got 3 or 4 people up there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's got a bunch.
Yeah, yeah. So he's probably, doing better or doing more than anybody. And if I didn't have Steve, cutting for me, I would have to get somebody in. I would either not be able to put product out, or I would have to have somebody in to cut during the day. Even with Steve cutting for me as much as he does, my laser now runs. My laser's probably 8 to 10 hours a day running every day, all day now. And if you guys know me, I'm supposed to be retired. And this
Keep hearing that. Haven't seen it yet.
This is not what retirement is, to be cutting on the laser. But I'm still enjoying it and very motivated in the next project. So yeah.
Jeff, have you done any? You've done brick building.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Steve's working on one brick one for me now. The Sanford, Carolina Depot.
Steve does about as good a job in any of the masonry on the laser that I've ever seen anybody do. And again, I guess it's his engineering experience and training, because he will catch. I'll try to give him, from my experiences, I'll give him, don't forget the header here, and don't forget this half cut here. Here's a soldier course. But if I miss something, he will normally catch it. And again, he will do a better job on a brickwork drawing than I can do. So and again, I'm only saying that because of the experience of laying brick for years and all that. You know how you do things, and he helped to develop those corners that we used on. I'm trying to think which. I guess it was the O scale corners we did on Elkins.
Yeah.
Because on the HO Elkins we did that where you sanded it, right, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the HO version of Elkins was you sanded it.
Scale, they interlocked.
Right. Yeah, but he helped to develop that. That was, I don't even want to know how much time he had on that till he got that done. But it was perfect. It matched up. Well, I think on the first test cut, it matched up perfect, which is unbelievable for brickwork to do that. So. And now I know he's working on stone. We've done a few things in the stone, and I know he's messing with some stone stuff now to try to match up to the RDA stuff, because those molds are gone from RDA. They're not all gone, but they can't be redone anymore because, of course, Rob has passed on and everything. And he did all those by hand. That was one of the reasons why his kits were so well respected out in the market and so well liked, because they were very, very good.
Jeff, what's the impact of the 3D stuff going to be on your kits?
Well, at this point, nothing. I've tried to do some stuff with it, but the problem with it that I've had so far is it's just not affordable. And again, Dylan can jump in here on this, but if I need, again, generic details, if I need 15 generic details for a kit, out in the market, they're going to cost me anywhere from 75 cents to $1.50 a piece. And so far, all of my checking in 3D has been, I'm in the, $5 range for just something simple. Now, am I looking at the wrong places? I have not.
There is a way around that.
Okay, well,
I've learned this myself.
Okay.
So let's say you look at a bunch of small parts, and if you try to print a single small part as just that, the single small part, yeah, your cost is up there. Perfect example, the generators, the gen sets that I'm doing with the Junkyard Dog that I designed, those motors, they're at the lower end of what it usually will cost me from Sculpteo, but it's still that single unit, so you need to break that cost down. What I found is small items, if you put multiples on like a sprue, like a perfect example, and I am willing to go into this, I tell people this all the time. I do a set of steam dome fixtures, so 2 pop valves and a whistle. I sell them for $1.90. they cost me about 25 cents
Okay.
when you factor in all of that. And I'm just like, dude, holy crap. Yeah, you have to make money on it.
Mm-hmm.
But even I'm like, I'm not charging through the nose for that. A $1.90 is more than fair, especially considering like you can't find the Bachmann replacements. But it's just, it depends on what you're doing. If it like a window frame, you could probably put that on a sprue. That's what I would imagine anyway.
Yeah, you
You
can.
might have to file
Yeah.
a little spot where it hooked up off, but that's not difficult with the nylon that I use or that I'm having stuff made in. That's not difficult. So little light filing, you might have to get the nub off, but that's not a big deal. If you're polishing something, it adds cost to it, but it's also a question of if it's something so small, one, will it survive the polishing? And then two, do you necessarily need the polishing? So I use what's called MJF, which is basically multi-jet fusion, which in layman's terms basically looks like a giant inkjet printer.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's what it looks like, and it just runs over a bed of powder. You don't necessarily need to polish those. The finish on them is so it's really so lightly grainy. Once you paint it, 90% of the time, when I painted something that's unpolished, the grain, you put a primer on it and paint it, you can't tell the difference between that and a polished item.
It disappears. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. SLS, like what Shapeways does,
Mm-hmm.
not so much because it's a different process. I don't know how that process works. I just know I like the MJF because I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a problem with it. It does everything I need of it. It survives the drop test. I don't know if it'll survive the get run over by a skid steer test because I've got 2 of those sitting in the backyard. I could probably test it. I'd say, a 1,000-pound machine will probably destroy it. But something that's the only reason I want to test that is because like some of the small stuff, like the flats, I'd like to see how those hold up. Like if they get damaged in shipping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the other part of that, Jim, that I don't have the answer. I just haven't had the time to devote. Quite honestly, I've had since Steve has told me that he's worked with Dylan on several things. And how long's that been, Dylan? Probably a year or more. You and him have worked together.
Yeah, about a year or more.
Well, he told me shortly on in that, when you guys started, he said you need to get up with Dylan and talk to him about these 3D parts and pieces sometime. Well, here we go. Finally. That's been part of the problem. I've just been, so busy trying to be retired and staying caught up that I'm old school enough that the castings are good enough. And yes, I get reminded about 3D every time I turn, quite a bit. And I just have not put the effort into it at this point yet. So I need to look at that a little bit heavier because I think a lot of people are starting to do it now. Again, I think Bar Mills is starting to do more 3D stuff. And I think Kenny KC's, I think he's been looking into it more. So again, I think there's more and more developing it, and it should do like the lasers. The cost of it will probably come down as more goes on with it and everything. So
it's a new technology in the 1/700 scale ships. They're starting to see 3D printed kits. Nowhere near the resin yet.
Are they doing the whole kit in it?
Pretty much all of it except for photo etch.
Okay.
Okay. There's companies in China and Japan that are doing a lot of photo etch stuff and a lot of 3D printing battleships and cruisers and stuff. But a lot of the exotic stuff is still all resin from Russia and the Eastern countries in Europe. And they're beautiful, absolutely gorgeous resin castings. The aftermarket resin part systems for plastic modelers is absolutely huge, from Eduard and Voyager and other places. It's just a massive aftermarket.
It is amazing what you can do with that resin. I can end scale 3/4 inch bolts. I can feel them. I can't see them, but I can sure as heck feel them.
Can't imagine working in N scale today. Whew, I can hardly see the HO anymore.
Well, that's the nice thing about 3D printing. I do it on my screen at full
Yeah.
scale
Yeah.
and just tell Shapeways, okay, I wanted it 160.
Mhm.
And it comes back, and like I say, you can feel the bolts on the nut bolt washer combinations. And yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of painting with the Optivisor, but it'll work. You know, I've got 1 inch wide boards, 1 inch thick boards, I should say, that's unsupported. So I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also going back to availabilities, Tichy has gotten pretty aggressive with doing more stuff too. He's doing a few more details and things like that. He's trying to branch out more with chimney stacks and different things like that instead of just the windows and doors like he's been doing. So he's really been developing some new things for that too. So, and we use them for just about everything we do that we can. And, they're just really easy to work with, and you get orders. I can send an order to him on Monday, and I'll have an order with 2,000 pieces in it on Wednesday, which is phenomenal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have 3D printed chimney casting so you don't have to deal with that mismatched metal seam.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate those.
I got a 3D chimney stack. I'll send you the file. You can send it to Shapeways and have them print it.
Yeah, I'm still too cheap to do that, though.
Pardon?
I'm still too cheap to do that.
Well, $5 for 6 of them?
Yeah, what about shipping?
Okay, so yeah, $10
Yeah.
for 6 of them.
Yeah, the shipping kills us in
Yeah,
Canada.
it
kills
really
us.
does. Yeah.
The shipping really does. Yep.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
$170
It's
for
my
6
own
of them.
problem. I just need to buy a 3D printer and do it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
Peter,
like buying a $1,000 tablecloth to fix a $4 door.
Peter, do you have many manufacturers up there in Canada? Or are they mostly rooted down here in the States?
There's some up here. There's Itla, I think, is out of Ontario.
Uh-huh.
There is Rail Scale Miniatures in BC, Abbotsford, that does. He was doing Craftsman kits, but I think he's resuming production. I've got all of his stuff now, and it's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
But there's not a lot of manufacturers. There's a guy north of me here that does a lot of 3D printing and resin N-scale locomotive shells of Canadian prototype stuff. Iron Horse. He does a lot of that. He's got like 4 or 5 machines in his setup. But I don't think that we're a manufacturing powerhouse up here for model railroad stuff.
Yeah, I found a guy out of Calgary that does 3D printing fairly inexpensively, cheaper than Shapeways at least. So I haven't tried him yet, but he seems to be doing a decent price.
Yeah, there are some
what he
guys.
quoted me.
Yeah, I haven't been to a show for a long time, so I'm not sure who's doing things. I met the guy from up north at the local train show open house. So, but
Of course, Richard, that might be where you run into the expensive shipping and the reverse.
Yeah, I was surprised though. He said if it costs me more than $15 to ship it to the U.S., he'll eat the remainder of it. So I can't complain about that.
No.
No.
you get
And
the
Yeah, but
benefit of the
I do
dollar
something
too.
of the same thing
Yes.
with my shipping. You know what I mean? I do a flat rate myself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just because I look at that, 90% of the stuff I send here in the U.S., it's either at or under the $5 line because I sell a lot of small stuff. The larger stuff like the Haskells, yeah, it costs you an extra couple bucks to ship them, but it's not the end of the world.
Mhm.
International, I just charge 15. And that I have yet to run into a situation where sending something internationally that I'm paying more than what I charge. So again, I can't complain, but I do a flat rate basically as a service. You know what I mean? You make it up in other ways, whether it be the bulk amount of shipping costs that comes in, you know, that helps even things out. If you have to take it out of some of the other places, it is what it is, not the end of the world. You got to do what you got to do to keep your customers happy. And I found that you do a flat rate shipping makes a lot of people very happy.
Yeah, we do the same thing off the website. It's flat rate shipping, and the way I look at it is, the more you buy, the more I'm making on the sale. So if it costs me $15 to send something that I'm typically charging $7 for our shipping, like you said, Dylan, it works out. So it averages out.
So Jeff, I'm curious. Mark, can't think of his name all of a sudden. Oh, Mark Dance from Vancouver pointed me at using laser cutting for custom work, custom windows and doors. Would your company do that if I sent you the right files and worked with you?
We do a lot of that.
Okay.
Quite honestly, what's keeping me busier, and even we'll go back to bringing up Steve on this, the amount of custom work that Steve and I do, it's unbelievable. I'm just amazed at how many people want, again, just like you said, their custom windows or custom, or custom walls or background, this or that and everything. And yes, we do all kinds of that.
Okay.
And quite honestly,
These are some of Jeff's windows and doors right here.
There you
go. And I've built I've built laser kits and all that, but I'd never considered until he mentioned it about, wow, you could get this done custom, just like you can do custom 3D printing. Windows are better done, I think, in wood and laser than they are in 3D printing.
Yeah, and that goes back. I prefer laser cut windows and doors because you can get a truer, your injection moldings are a little bit heavier looking than what a laser cut is.
Exactly.
But
and the painting.
Problem, and painting, you're right. But the problem is, I've never had a customer call me up and say, I'm not going to buy your kit because you have Tichy windows in it, but I'm not buying your kits if they have laser cut windows and doors. So, but there's a lot of that. Again, for myself, I really prefer the laser cut, and that those couple of guys that won't buy them because of that, then they're gonna have to do something else. Now, what I've started to do now on some of the newer kits is I'll use the same sizes of Tichy if I can. I'm not going to change the kit around or redevelop the kit because they wouldn't have a window. But I have done that for a lot of kits. I have one guy that buys a lot of stuff from me, and he does not like the laser cut windows and doors. So and he's been a customer from day one. So I will resize for him, and he doesn't care even if it's not close. He just wants to not use laser cut windows and doors. But I love them. Again, Greg can tell you that Steve ended up doing some laser cut windows for the Wayside Williamsport, Western Maryland's Wayside Depot. And boy, they were incredible, weren't they, Greg?
They were 27/4.
Yeah.
I don't know what Western Maryland building engineer decided that 27/4 is the proper window to put in his telegraph office. But nobody's come out with windows that would match it. And then I was building one, and I just on a whim, I asked Stephen if he could make something similar to that. And he said, sure, I'll give it a try. And they came out great, and I've used them in a couple kits now, including one.
And again, go back to that half-inch wide by 3/4 inch tall scale window, 27/1. You'd never get that you'd never get that in an injection molded window,
Mm-mm.
but you get it in a laser cut window, and it's phenomenal. It makes that building, doesn't it, Greg?
Everybody who's seen that with that window goes, oh my God, that is really what it looks like now.
Mm-hmm. And you know, sometimes I sit back and say, okay, because I do really like the historical ends. You know, we spend a lot of time in Wilmington, North Carolina, up in Newport, Rhode Island. You know, so again, I love those kind of buildings. And when you see those buildings that have a diamond-shaped window, you know, top sash and maybe a diamond-shaped top sash with a 6-light below, I want to put them in the kits. And sometimes I just want to say, okay, you guys that don't like laser cut windows and doors, this kit ain't for you. I'm not saying that to be smart, but that's kind of, you know, how it is, you know. That's what I like about the historical buildings is you're getting a look that again, you're not going to get in the Walthers kits and all that. That's the beauty of these laser cut things and all. So
Yeah, Jim and Dylan, if I could share real quick, I'll show everybody what that window looks like.
I'd love to see it.
Fire away.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Disabled right now.
Oh, hold on, let me fix that.
Got it.
There we go, all fixed.
Okie doke. There you go.
There we go.
there you go.
Ah,
Oh,
Jeez.
Yeah, look
Now,
at that.
I was a little heavy-handed in the painting, but you'll never find a cast window like that.
No. And
And that would be hard in
That's where-
3D printing too.
Yeah, where I did one closed and one a little bit open. And I think another place I had one all the way open.
That's
And it look-
fantastic.
it
That
looks
is
better in person.
fantastic.
That's really beautiful work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks better in
Feel sorry
person.
for the glazer on the prototype.
That is beautiful.
You could do that really nice with photo etch too.
Yeah.
Jeff, what's the best way of painting and sealing the edges of the laser board?
Well, I'm still, you know, everything that I do with the laser board, I'm still priming it with the cheap gray primer. And I will try to make sure that I hit those edges very well with it. And that seems to take care of it. If you don't prime the laser board, and you may even, I've also found that if you take some 320 or 220 sandpaper and just rub that across whatever you're doing. You don't have to do it hard that you're going to mess up anything that, you know, normally that laser board is done for more details, of course, you know that. But if you just take and just wipe across it, or even a piece of steel wool, that gives a little bit of tooth so that the primer will still stick to it very well. A lot of guys will complain that they can't get primer to stick to the laser board without some kind of prep. And and what I found with most of the problems with that is they're not using it. They're not actually using a flat primer. They're using a finish coat of some sort. And you got to use the flat primer to make it happen.
Jeff, one of the fun things that I'm finding from modelers who are particularly building the dioramas is they want better figures.
Yes.
And I'm not finding people that are making, quote, better figures.
Jim, I can't go into details. It's not my thing, actually. Believe it or not, it is not my thing. I just know about it. Give it a couple weeks and you might see something happening with some figures.
Okay.
Which scale?
O scale.
O scale.
Because what people are starting to try to do, including me, is trying to learn how to sculpt figures. And it's the hardest thing that I've ever tried to do.
Well, I've seen you working on your children on the playground, and it's like
Oh.
each child takes you a week or something, right?
I'm telling you, it's, you know, and I started that because I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Mhm.
And I looked around for figures and I thought, well, I'll break some legs, you know, and arms and that kind of thing. No big deal. I looked around for figures and I couldn't find figures.
Mhm.
So I found some pictures and I rescaled those down to O scale, cut the pictures out, put them on a piece of cardstock, and then start putting putty on top of the pictures to get an outline at least of
Interesting.
what the child would look like. Because I didn't know how to do the anatomy parts of it, you know? I didn't know how big the head should be from the hand and all this kind of stuff. And that's how I started it. Well, now I found two guys that are actually helping me try to learn how to do the figure sculpting and what tools to use. Hell, I never got dental tools, that kind of thing. So I had no idea what kind of tools you even use to try to sculpt a figure. But if somebody would make some figures that are not just the standard woman standing with a purse and the man standing with a hat on, there's a
Yep.
real market out there, particularly for these diorama guys. I mean, these guys are starting to use war gaming figures, you know, whatever they can find out there, because the O scale market, S scale market, those HO market, the figures aren't there.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed.
Dylan probably knows more about this than I do, but isn't there a program out there called Human Maker or something like that that you can run through and get 3D printed? You can design the body the way you want and it 3D prints?
I have no idea.
You
I've never,
might be able to. Keyword here is might. I've heard about the program before, but I know next to nothing about it.
I don't either, but I've seen some. You're a traditional fat engineer with his foot up on a, and it looks good. You can see the blousing of the bib. You can see the folds around the crotch. You can, you know, it would be good for O scale. N scale, I don't need quite as much detail. But
Jim,
I
if
don't
you
know.
want to learn from the masters, look up Warcraft sculpting.
okay.
World of Warcraft, or
Yes.
sorry, Warcraft 40,000.
Yes, I've seen
And
some of their
Warcraft.
videos for painting.
Yeah,
Yes.
Warhammer. I know what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
Warhammer. That, I mean,
Yep.
those guys
Yep.
can sculpt figures from scratch that are super complex,
Mhm.
and they know what they're doing, and they're using the Milliput and other putties to get everything.
Yeah, when I was looking at buying a 3D printer and all that, I was surprised at how many are in the gaming and miniature people people read it for all the different, you know, quote monsters and stuff like that. So
Yeah, the 28 millimeter wargaming figures and the 54 millimeter wargaming figures are really big, and then the Warhammer is just huge with the sculpting in the 3D.
I've been getting some of my stuff from a group called Gizmo Dorks, and they have a lot of 3D printing material and other stuff that's made primarily for gaming miniatures and other items like that. And so much of the painting that we're coming across and other weathering products are coming from that end of the spectrum. I'm really excited about how so many of the different modeling genres are crossing over boundary lines. You know, we're learning, you know, getting a lot of the Vallejo and AK stuff from military modeling and wargame modeling and stuff.
Yep.
And it's opening up all kinds of experimental doors.
Mhm.
Yeah, the MIG products for weathering are just awesome. I mean, it's like stepping into the future when you get into that sort of stuff, compared to the
Yeah, and
conventional model railroad techniques of just dust.
and you know, we never thought of using MIG, you know, up until the last year or so. I never gave it a second thought to use MIG and AK, you know.
Yeah.
And they're more readily available than any of our railroad paints are anymore.
Well, ours are kind of dying out. I guess they
pretty
just,
much.
you know, they didn't really move forward.
Not at all. No.
No, there can be a lot of cross-pollination from the other modeling disciplines, a lot of it.
Yeah, since we can't talk to those folks that do narrow gauge and argue about the color of the green boilers on DNRGWs.
It's a little too dark, maybe.
If you survive the first round with the green boilers, we're getting into Russian.
I've come across a number of things that are actually more from the artistry world. Copic pens, I don't know if you can read that, and these distress crayons. I've gotten quite a few of those in different earth tones. I've used them for some weathering. I also found some of the distress crayons are great for putting mortar into laser cut brick, which sometimes is thinner than cast brick. And
what are distress crayons? What are they?
They're basically a pigment embedded in a wax, and they're water activated. So you would take it and rub it on, and it looks kind of waxy, but then if you take a brush and go over it with some water, you can kind of shape it and design where you want it to go. It's used in the art world for on art paper, where you can make color washes, kind of like watercolors and stuff. I put a couple things on YouTube about using them for weathering and for brick mortar and stuff.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to explain them. You know, Greg did a pretty good job to it, but I looked at them and I couldn't even begin to think about using. I just thought, well, these are stupid. And then I saw, what Greg was doing with them, and I've played with it a little bit. And you got to try it to understand how it works. I think, because I like them now. You're right. They really do some nice jobs with weathering. I think you can control them better than trying to chalk and everything. Of course.
Well, I had a friend's layout, and he had a building that he had bought at a show. It was a feed and mill, and whoever had built it had put on some really, really light colored shingles. And he said, it just doesn't look right to me. I want that roof to be dark. And we were talking about, you know, washes, alcohol washes with India ink and other stuff. Well, are they going to warp it or anything like that? And I said, well, let me try these. So I went over it with some of the distress crayons and then a very light amount of water to kind of wash it around. And it came out looking great. And it was really easy to do. You can cover a lot of area with it.
When you say a light wash of water, I mean, is this a damp rag? What are you talking about? I mean, on a wood model, I'd be scared to put water on it.
Almost like dry brushing. I found that if it's, you know, if you kind of tap the water all, it's not, like I said, it's hard to explain. Because the first time I tried it, Jim, I thought the same thing you said. Well, this is stupid to do this. But the more I played with it, and I'm pretty much just dry brushing it, basically, not very much water at all.
Yeah, this is a rag that I use when I'm pushing it around. And I'll just get a little bit of dampness on the rag and push it around. And it pretty much is dry by the time I've done, but it's activated that pigment and moved it around.
I got you. Okay.
Jim, I think you've got another topic here to talk about on a future edition.
Absolutely. I just did. You know, it's funny, but, you know, Mike number 1 or Mike number 2 that was here with us last time, he suggested, because of some of the things that you talked about, he suggested that I get some modelers from different hobbies and have them come on and talk about tools. And he mentioned a company that I'd frankly never heard of before called UMM. Remember that? He was talking about it? Well, I called the guy up. and nice as he could be, helpful as he could be, offered to send me tools and this kind of stuff. Well, you know, I don't send me tools here. You know, I need I need contacts in the different hobbies is what I really called him about, you know. Well, I'm supposed to talk to him now Friday, and a friend of his who is a writer for Fine Scale, what is it? I think Fine Scale magazine. They make model airplanes, plastic model airplanes, right? He uses this company's tools in his building and so forth in model airplanes.
There you go, Jack.
And Mike, exactly, and Mike uses his tools in his model railroading. So now I've got these two guys, and if I can bring them together, from what I found out talking to this owner of the company, I call him a problem solver. Because if you have a model that you're building and you're trying to accomplish something in that model, but you don't have a tool or you're wondering how I can do this, you call this guy up. He can either tell you what tool he sells that'll work for you to do that, or he'll design a new tool for you.
Nice.
I've never heard of a company like that before.
Yeah. Fenton
I
Wells.
looked at their website after you had him on the show talking about it. And their website is just so immense and full. You could spend a whole day just going through all the stuff they offer.
That's why I called him up. I gave up. That's it. I'm through with this. Let me just see if I can get him on the telephone. Have him tell me, you know.
Fenton Wells put me onto this. A lot of the freight car scratch builders and kit bashers use these.
Yeah.
And got a couple of different miters you can buy, different sizes.
They're really good.
So it's very sharp. Nice tool.
Handles are back ordered at Micromark right now.
Really?
I'm writing that one down. That'd be a good guy to have at Craftsman Courtyard, guys.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, he doesn't want to come on our Zoom, but he's putting me in contact with other modelers in other disciplines, and I'm going to try to get them to come on. You know, if I can get model car maker, model airplane maker, you know, that kind of thing.
That's not a bad idea. I like it.
And let them talk about the tools that they use, because again, you know, you talk about other hobbies and everything. When you look at the people that are buying the model railroads magazines right now, they're buying not just model airplane, model railroad magazines. They're buying model airplanes. They're buying the car magazines. They're not just sticking to one discipline anymore.
Well, one of the best things I found from watching a number of aircraft modelers on YouTube is about canopy glue. It's fantastic stuff that I had just somehow never heard of until I started seeing a couple aircraft modelers using it to attach canopies. And I said, well, let me try that on some windows. And it works great on windows and any other place where I need a really thin viscosity white glue to work.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, see, the only glues I use is canopy glue and tacky glue, basically. They seem to cover about everything that I'll do. Yeah.
You do that for putting your wood walls together, etc.?
I use tacky glue for all that. Yep. I find that is, I get a little bit more grab to it than yellow glue or, you know, Elmer's glue, wood glue. A lot of the guys like to just say, hey, you got to use the Elmer's wood glue, the yellow. But I like the Eileen's tacky glue. I buy that by the case, and it just, to me, it just gives me a little bit of working space, time to make it work. And
I've
then,
got,
of course,
3 different white glues that I use, and it's not so much a strength thing for me, it's a viscosity thing. The Eileen's is the thickest, and the Elmer's is in the middle, and the canopy glue is the thinnest, and it really kind of depends on what I'm attaching to what and how thin a bead I need or how much I need it to flow or not flow. And that really kind of determines which glue I'm going to use. But there's so many out there, and it just, I love experimenting with different ones and seeing how they work.
Well, I'll take the Eileens and thin it and put it in the needle points. And when I got to have that, I like that for doing the putting windows in.
Yeah.
But I'll thin it because it gets a little heavy trying to do it. But that needle point, you got to thin it probably 30-35%. And again, and that depends on how cold or warm it is in your room too. With Eileen. So, but that's basically my two glues too.
Thank you.
Hey guys,
Listen,
get the kids in bed. Thanks. Good to see you, Jeff.
Hey, same here, Chris. Be good.
Yeah. Yep, you too. And I'll send you an email probably later in the week about things we were talking about.
Sounds good. Ready for it anytime. Be good.
All right, you too. So,
Well,
Take
thanks,
care.
Jim, we've
thanks
been
for
doing
coming,
this for
Bruce.
about 2 hours.
But listen, this is close to 2 hours, like he said. So maybe we ought to wrap it up tonight. Next time we've got an artist that's going to be here, and you met him a little bit the other night when he showed up. His name is Ryan Appledum, and he's an artist by training, and he does some fantastic modeling. I just could not believe it. And he's a model railroader, but he brings the artistic part of it to the table. So I think you may enjoy him. And guys, thanks so much for being here tonight. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have. I hope you've learned something.
Thank you, Jim.
And look forward to seeing you next
Thanks
time.
for putting it on.
Thank you,
Jim.
Jim.
Thanks for hosting
Good
it.
to see you.